Where do you come to get all your news? You already know it is Washington Informer. I'm back, Micha Green, Washington Informer managing editor, and I'm so incredibly excited to be having a Thursday of just musical Black excellence. We started earlier this morning with Tracy Hamlin, songstress, jazz, Sweet Jazz Festival founder and music entrepreneur. And now I am elated to be here with the founding members of Imani Winds, Monica Ellis, and Toyin Spellman Diaz. I am just so excited to chat with them about all things Imani Winds, some of the goods that they have coming our way very soon, including tomorrow, which I'll let them talk about, as well as a concert this Wednesday at the Kennedy Center. But before we are bringing them in, we have a video to introduce some of their goodness as well. So without further ado, let's roll the video. Hello, Monica, Toyin. How are you all this beautiful Thursday? The last Thursday in Women's History Month, I should emphasize. Two wonderful barrier-breaking women history makers with us today. How are you all today?
Wonderful. Very good. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being with us today. We are so thankful for your time, for your artistry, and for sharing it with us for over 2 decades, which is crazy because how can you all be 25 and have been doing this the same amount of time?
That's called black magic.
Yeah.
Little bit of black girl magic for sure.
Well, thank you for spreading this Black girl magic, not only with us this morning, but with us worldwide. We so appreciate the award-winning, just barrier-breaking, culture-shifting and shaping music that Imani Winds produces and shares with audiences around the world. And so we thank you for being with us today. You all, before we even get into the nitty-gritty of the exciting things happening tomorrow and next week, and I'm sure this year, take us a little bit back. It's Women's History Month. Take us back, give us some history to the founding days of Imani Winds and a little bit of reflection to where you are today. And Monica, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Well, yeah, it is pretty appropriate that Women's History Month is now and that we're having this conversation because a pretty powerful, amazing visionary woman is who started Imani Winds. It's Valerie Coleman, and she is a flutist, a composer, a professor, a thinker, just really, and again, a visionary. And it was her concept back in 1997 to form Imani Winds, to bring together musicians of color to make up a wind quintet, which is a typical chamber music ensemble, chamber music configuration. But she really wanted to show the diversity that can exist in wind chamber music. She wanted us to be a vehicle for her own music, for her compositions. And more than anything, I think at that time, wanted to take her own career in her own hands and say, hey, I'm not going to wait for something to happen. I'm going to do things before having to be told what to do. And so she tracked us all down. For the most part, she did not know us. She asked around, asked who she could find, the best players she could contact, best players she could find. And one by one, we all came together And found ourselves in a practice room in Manhattan School of Music one day in the summer of 1997, and she saw sparks and chemistry and all those amazing things immediately, and we all came on bit by bit, but it was pretty powerful in that early stage. Just we recognized that something really special was happening, and we went about just working really hard. This is before social media, the internet was barely anything. So we did some grassroots efforts, put on our own concert series, eventually took some competitions, one of which led to management, amazing organization called Concert Artist Guild. And that management really led us to being able to be out on the road, like you're saying. And we were very devoted to outreach concerts very early on. So we were playing for all sorts of audiences, young kids, libraries, prisons, senior citizens, and then also the main stage concert. And so that allowed for us to get our mission across several platforms and lots of different arenas. And I think that early on outreach to so many different audiences, we found our people pretty quickly. And so here we are again, all these years later. We made records early on, and special projects. We were really trying to be, innovative from the very beginning, but at the same time, just keeping our nose to the grind, and letting the message and the music speak for itself.
Thank you. Wow. I felt like I was sort of on the road and on the journey with you there. Toyin, who is literally on the road, and we so thank you for being with us today. Anything else you'd like to share about the journey over the past couple of decades?
Well, I'll say that DC was an excellent place to grow up. I'm a native DC person myself. And so that was an incredible place to get free lessons from really amazing musicians from the National Symphony through their education program, through the Duke Ellington School for the Arts, where I was doing music programs. And but I'll also say that when we started in 1997, the classical music field was changing. The 70s, there was a massive influx of 60s and 70s, there was a massive influx of money into the arts through the creation of the National Endowment for the Arts. That's kind of that massive influx of money led to the building of the Kennedy Center. Um, and in the 80s, we had the Reagan era, and there was some music going, and then through H.W. Bush, he was also a fan of the arts. So when Imani Winds started in 1997, there was kind of a moment where it looked like orchestras were not doing as well as they had been in the past few decades. So chamber music was on the rise when we started. And there were even a few Black groups and groups of color out there who were really doing it really well. People from Latin American countries, but also here in the United States, homegrown through the Maxine Roach was a violinist who started a string quartet. There were groups who were interested in music from around the world, and they were putting out music on. Do you remember Putumayo? The record company, you'd get their CDs in Starbucks. That
Yes.
pledging, I think Starbucks started right around the time of Imani Winds too. But so that's the kind of time we were coming up with, the end of the Clinton era, where there was still some money, but we were about to get into the W. Bush era, where a lot of the funding for large ensembles was drying up. So there was a rise of these small ensembles, like just like in the 40s and into the 50s. There was a lot of money for big bands, jazz big bands, back in that era, but those are big and heavy lug to ensembles to travel and tour. So they started having the smaller group ensembles in jazz. So it was kind of the same thing when we started out. We just happened to come around at the right place at the right time. People were interested in music and music making by musicians of color, and they were also interested in music from not just the traditional canon. And so we stepped into that and ran with it, and that's how we've managed to um, go along for these years. I think there's a moment now when people are also interested in African American and Latinx music making. So, how do you weather the time between the bubbles of interest? You, like Monica said, you work really hard, you practice a lot, and you make sure that you're bringing really beautiful music making, and you build that audience and that trust. Again, repeating what Monica said. And so that's how we've managed to stay around for this long.
Well, we are so thankful that you've managed to stay around for this long and continuing to share your art and win Grammy Awards this year. Congratulations. Tell us about that and this new video that drops tomorrow that I think has a little bit to do with this Grammy Award. So, Monica, why don't you jump on in?
Sure. Well, yeah, it's a huge project. We're so proud of it. This record is, I think, our 10th studio recording, actually, our third nomination that was indeed won the award for Classical Compendium this year. So extremely excited. And it's a homegrown effort in many, many ways. The album is called Passion for Bach and Coltrane. It is a collaboration between Imani Winds, the Harlem String Quartet, and a jazz trio involving Alex Brown on piano, Neil Smith on drums, and Edward Perez on bass. And then the creme de la creme is Toyin's own father, A.B. Spellman, the incomparable A.B. Spellman, jazz critic, writer, just an amazing person, and people know him from so many different walks of life. He wrote the poetry that inspired the piece, inspired our former horn player Jeff Scott to write this and conceive this whole project. And he actually speaks that poetry in the entire program. So there's 13 people on stage and was in the recording studio. It's a big project, labor of love, from almost over 10 years ago now. And we finally were able to record it and put it out on our brand new record label, Imani Winds Media, which also is serving as not just a recording a record label, but really a resource house, really an opportunity to connect with people coming up that are interested in doing creative projects like podcasts, like recordings, videos of their own. We want to use the media company as a vehicle to help younger folks coming up behind us. And so it's going to serve many purposes, opportunity to mentor as well. But first and foremost, it's a record label, and we put it out. And so the recording, the piece speaks to this idea of the great J.S. Bach and the great John Coltrane coming together in this sort of imaginary space. And like I said, Jeff was inspired by the writing of A.B. Spellman, by this amazing poetry that he did, and came up with straight up covers, if you will, of some of the classics, the Goldberg variations and A Love Supreme, but also some of original music that he intertwined with the poetry. A lot of original, half of it is completely original, but it all goes to his creativity and Jeff's ability to think about something that's bigger than just a quintet. And I think in many ways, that's a part of our success as well, that special projects have included other entities, even though what we do is, travel around the country, like you said, playing recitals like we're doing at the Kennedy Center, of course. But then there are these opportunities to do these great larger works, larger pieces that really kind of stretch us and stretch our audiences and bring something new and exciting to our audiences. So super proud of Passion for Bach and Coltrane. We're gonna cut that off. The recording is being, there we go. Sorry. The recording came out, of course, last year, but that now we're releasing a video of the actual recording session. And so it's a video that will, also interspersed with interviews, about the piece from Jeff and myself and Toyin and AB, to just give some insight to the work, but also seeing the piece in its full entirety as well.
Oh, it sounds so incredibly fabulous. Congratulations, congratulations, congratulations.
Thank you.
And, you know, Monica explained it so beautifully, but Toyin, I do have to ask, you know, having this really, again, incredible collaboration with so many wonderful entities, but then one being your dad. Tell us about how that was, and being able to bring again this award-winning work uh, with your dad as a part of it along the way.
Well, I mean, it's being able to create, you know how Beyonce and Taylor Swift are coming out with their concert films. This is our concert film, you know. That's what we're doing. But and we're trying to keep that vibrant. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the movie American Symphony that came out recently on Netflix. John Batiste. Like, we're all trying to make reach more audiences, because it's hard to get there. As a classical ensemble, you kind of have a limited amount of people who listen to classical music by itself. So we're trying to expand that with this idea of a film. And to do something with my dad, you know, it's unbelievable. Jeff, when Imani Winds, when Jeff wrote this piece, it was the original, it was still the original members of the ensemble. And I think I was the only person with a living dad in the ensemble at that time. So my or dad who they interacted with. So we, dad was very much up in the mix. He'd come to every concert in DC. He still lives in DC, in the same house I grew up in with my mom. And so he was, you know, he was the dad to the group. And so he published a new book of poetry for the first time in 30 years, back in the early 2000s. And he gave that to, or the late 2000s, and he gave that to Jeff. And Jeff read the poetry, and was really taken by it. He was really inspired by it. So that's how he came to get in the mix of performing with it. He's a tremendous orator in his own right. Um, back back he's in his 80s, his late 80s, and back then, you know, he did kind of do a little theater when he went to Howard. But there wasn't really an option to be an actor when you, in the 50s, when he was coming up, unless you wanted to play a butler, you know, or an enslaved person. So he went on to be a poet and an intellectual, and he actually worked for the National Endowment for the Arts for 30 years. So anyway, having him in the ensemble, up on the road with us, you know, we spent a lot of time in hotel rooms when we're on the road, far more time than we do on the concert stage. So having dad around to go to dinner with, and taking him to the gig and hanging out with him backstage, that's really something special. It's a different moment than what one normally has with one's parent. You know,
Yeah.
you go to dinner with your parent, and when you're an adult, and you go to Christmas and hang out, you know, for special events. They come to your kids' plays and dance recitals. But you know, to have a professional moment where we're all expressing ourselves at the highest level we possibly can, that's pretty extraordinary. So I don't think a moment like this will come by again. And this was the Grammy winning CD, or that we put out. So I think the Grammys recognized it was a special moment as well.
Absolutely. And I think we all do. We're getting hearts and folks reacting. And I want to say thank you and good morning to all of the people tuning in. We appreciate you as well. I am just, again, so inspired by you all's work, by this awesome collaboration. And again, the journey, which gets us to this Wednesday at the Kennedy Center. We are so excited to have you here in Washington, D.C., sharing your gifts with local audiences. Tell us about the performance this coming Wednesday at the Kennedy Center.
Yeah, we're extremely excited to be back on the stage of the Terrace Theater. Just as a part of the Fortis Chamber Music Series, it's an incredible honor. We've been there now several times, but to every time is special. Of course, it's always special to go to one of our hometowns as well, and so that's wonderful. And this whole program is about what we've always been doing, what we've been doing now for all of these years, which is celebrating composers of color. So each of these pieces have either been written for us specifically, or we've celebrated them. So we've got music by Damian Jeter, who is an amazing opera singer and in residence at Richmond Symphony, doing such great work. A piece that was commissioned for us. We commissioned the next piece by Carlos Simon as a part of our Imani Winds Foundation. We don't need another thing to do, but we have a nonprofit that we run, and a much of the fundraising for all of our special projects, like commissions, go through the nonprofit. And so this was one of the pieces that was resulted in that. Carlos Simon, again, amazing young composer out there doing great work. We're playing a piece by the just consummate, amazing icon, Paquito de Rivera. That's probably the classic, the standard on the program, because it's the oldest piece, written in the 90s. And Paquito is just, our friend, our colleague, our like I said, an icon, titan in his own right. When it comes to Latin jazz, pop music, you name it, he's done it. Then the special piece on the program is it's not a world premiere, but it's our premiere of a collective consortium of commissioners that is by Sean Okebolo, and he wrote a piece entitled Rise. And so we are giving our premiere performance. Many other groups came together to commission him, and we were one of them. So we're now happy to give our premiere performance of it. And then we close out with two really special pieces, one by Andy Akiho, which is actually part of a new release that's coming out, we think, in May. And so stay tuned for that. This is it's entitled Be Loud, Beloved, Belonging. We also commissioned him to write this for us. It speaks to the issues with mass incarceration, actually, and the humanity that still needs to exist behind people that are incarcerated, whether that be through detainment or through being incarcerated because they should be or shouldn't be, and how we need to always remember that humanity. Andy is a steel pan percussionist, so we have elements of the sounds of the pan kind of coming together in this mass way, and through the wind quintet. It's amazing. It's an absolutely extraordinary tour de force piece that we've been enjoying, profusely playing all season. And then we close out with an amazing arrangement that our own Mark Dover did of the Nina Simone classic, I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free, composed by Dr. Billy Taylor. And so it's a powerhouse close to the concert as well. And you really don't want to miss it. I got to say, it's an incredible program with remarkable pieces that we're so excited to bring to the DC audience.
Well, I am so incredibly excited. You got me super fired up, and I'm just like tapping in my seat thinking about the music alone.
It's good stuff. It's really good stuff.
It's good stuff, but it sounds like important stuff too.
That's right.
It's a celebration of really important music, not only for the American canon, but again, worldwide. And so
Exactly.
we thank you. Now, I think Toyin's back with us. Yes. Anything else that you'd like to add about this Kennedy Center performance, Toyin, particularly, as Monica said, as it's a homecoming?
Well, the Kennedy Center was really helpful to me as a young musician, becoming more of myself. Like I mentioned earlier, they have an education program that is outstanding. I had free lessons from the Kennedy Center, from the National Symphony member, a National Symphony member. I got to play within the National Symphony as a high schooler. I would attend rehearsals almost weekly of the National Symphony. I really felt like they were invested in bringing up, and this was a program for Black and brown young musicians, by the way, especially for Black and brown young musicians, but also, I mean, they had everybody in there, but they were really looking to get people of color in there. And so the Kennedy Center means something special to me. Back in the day, I could run around. I didn't have to pay for a single ticket because I knew how all the back stage ways, and I would just sneak in and see everything back in the day. So every time that we're back in the Kennedy Center, it is really truly a homecoming. That was more my home than my high school, really, because they understood me and how to help me become more of me. So going to the Kennedy Center is always wonderful.
Well, I thank you so much for sharing those memories. And did we get a little exclusive, y'all, that Toyin knows how to get around the Kennedy Center without getting without getting tickets?
Nobody share that. Nobody share that. I don't. It's been a while. We'll say, Black magic only takes you so far.
Security might be a little bit more intense these days. I don't know.
I was gonna say, the ushers there and the people who work there do not play. Which is a good thing because we got to support the arts, and
That's right.
we thank them all. We thank them all. But I get it because y'all know how us Native Washingtonians do. We got to get in. We know the places and the spots to make sure we're getting the up close and personal exclusives.
Y'all are crazy, see?
Yeah, aka we're crazy. Yes, Monica got it.
Well, I mean, also the ushers knew me. They knew me. They'd be like, "Oh, hey, young lady," and so they'd wave me through too. So I really did grow up at the Kennedy Center. It's a special place for me.
Yes, and we're crazy about the arts. We're crazy about really tapping into such an important piece of culture. Toyin Spellman Diaz, Monica Ellis, thank you so much for this conversation. I have been just incredibly inspired and so empowered from chatting with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. Great time. We're looking forward to being down in the nation's capital.
That's right.
Well, we're looking forward to having you this Wednesday. You don't want to miss it. Kennedy Center Terrace Theater. This is such a great opportunity to really celebrate amazing artists, amazing musicians, amazing contributors to the world of music and the arts. And so you don't want to miss it. Go to Washington Informer or the Kennedy Center for more information. And again, thank you all for tuning in. Have a wonderful Thursday.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Where do you come to get